my wife thankfully said, you need to go get help.
Wow.
You need to get help. And it was very humbling for me because it was like, oh, wow, I just exploded.
Yeah.
I just kind of just went all out just now. And I see that it hurt my wife and my kids in such a negative way. And it was like, well, why not? Why not go talk to someone? And why not get help? What if I don't need help? Great, well, then we know I don't need help. Or what if I need help and I'm glad I went and got help? So I think just going and asking and just talking to someone was the first big step for me that I'm glad I did.
In our podcast, Hearing the Unheard Stories of Transformation, we discuss a variety of sensitive subjects such as suicide, suicidal ideation, self-harm, abuse, and faith crisis. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to our podcast, Hearing the Unheard Stories of Transformation, presented by Pause Wellness. I'm your host, Eric Stauffer. Very privileged to welcome our guest today, Chris Hammond.
Hey, thanks for having me.
How you doing, Chris?
Good, man. This is exciting.
Yeah.
I'm glad you guys invited me.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. I'm glad you're here with us. So why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, my name's Chris. Live here in northern Utah. I've got a family of 3, an 8-year-old, 5-year-old, 3-year-old, married for the last 16 years. Own a men's clothing store called the Cater Shop Menswear Store. So you find myself either doing that or on a side-by-side ride or, taking care of kids and doing soccer practice. That's a little bit about me. So, yeah.
So you go up Providence Canyon in that side-by-side?
Love Providence Canyon. Yeah. Anywhere there's no cell phone reception, really.
Yeah.
Which is great with the
out
kids.
Of reach.
Out of reach.
Touch, yeah.
Yep. And that's where we spend a lot of our times in the outdoors. Love northern Utah. I've been here for 20 years, and this is home.
You came to Utah State, right?
Came to Utah State.
What'd you study?
Yeah, studied exercise science. Thought I wanted to become a physical therapist. I was injured so much in football growing up that I thought, hey, why not be one of those guys that helps out the injured? But found that my niche was in menswear and marketing and helping Latter-day Saint missionaries.
Well, I've been the recipient of many a Cater Shop suit. So in my other job, I wear a suit all day. So okay. I've had a lot of your suits. Well, they've been fantastic. So
great. Yeah, thanks.
Well, do you have a favorite shoe, by the way?
Anything that's brown.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for brown shoes.
Echoes, Johnson & Murphy. What do you guys
Florsheim,
like?
Big one on Florsheim. Yeah, waterproof shoe, super comfortable. Love those shoes.
Classic.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been around a long time.
They've been around forever.
That's cool. That's great. So what do you like? So let's see. You've got 3 children.
Yeah.
So you guys stay pretty busy with that.
Yeah, 8, 5, and 3. So I mean, they're entering the 3rd grade, kindergarten. It's madness, right? I mean, that time of life is just a lot different, and we're trying to potty train one. So yeah that's been interesting.
So I've noticed with the Cater Shop, you guys have you got this family, but then with the Cater Shop, you guys have taken it to. You do a lot of different things with the Cater Shop. Your outreach seems to be pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, in this valley, we've been in the business 69 years. So we've been in the valley for such a long time. Our core demographics are Latter-day Saint missionaries, menswear in general. If you're getting ready for a wedding or a new first-time job, things like that, we get guys in all the time that are of that nature. Guy that's never worn a suit, or maybe he's on his 10th suit. So we have we outfit a whole array of people from the 8-year-old clear up to the 108-year-old.
Yeah. And I'm going to have to come in. I got to get some new stuff. So that'll be great.
Love to have you.
So our listeners might be sitting here going, okay, so what's the connection between a menswear owner and mental health?
Yeah.
Maybe you can just share with our listeners the connection and your own personal journny. You want to, you can start wherever you want.
Just kind of jump right into it, right? Yeah. So for me, mental health has always been something that I've never, I wouldn't say I've ever, growing up, was never diagnosed with anything. I think the stresses of life come on all of us through high school and through growing up and college and things like that. So I was never had a specific diagnosis from a doctor, but I felt like I've always had different stresses in my life that I've had to cope with. I definitely would say when I served at Latter-day Saint Mission for 2 years in upstate New York, that's the first time I was away from home by myself. Well, I say by myself, living with someone for 2 years. with a companion, as they call it, and learning how to deal with another person living with you. And so at that point in my life, I started realizing that I needed some different coping mechanisms, or I needed ways to get along with people better, because I'm around this person 24/7, out teaching church gospel doctrine type things, right? So starting my mission, and then as I got off my mission, started going to college, just dealing with the stresses of what is it like to go to college, what is it like to hold a job, to grow up, really, right? Mm-hmm. At that point, you're in your early 20s, you're on your own in life, and you're trying to figure out how things work. But for me, I think what really hit me as I've gotten older, fast forward a little bit when I'm married and I'm running a men's clothing store, trying to be the breadwinner of your family, trying to be the leader of a home, those stresses kind of compounded. I think it was almost like a volcano waiting to blow over time. So just kind of holding those things in, the stress, the chaos, the frustration, the anger that can come with life. There was a point a few years back when I kind of just snapped.
Can I ask, before you talk about the snap, why did you feel like you had to hold it in? Do you think that has to do with just like the stewardship or the responsibility you feel as a father or a husband to be cool, calm, and collected? Or do you feel like, what did you feel like was the pressure to keep it pressured?
That's a very valid question. Honestly, I think for the most part is I just didn't know what to do. Like, I was scared to like ask for help, or I didn't know where to go for help, or I didn't know you could go for help.
Yeah, so I want to push you on that a little bit, right? Like, why do you think that is? Why do you think that we don't know where to go, or that we don't know that we can ask for help? Why do we think that? Why is it our knee-jerk reaction to hold it in?
Yeah, I think comes with it some shame, or just feeling like, hey, I'm not broken, or why would I want to admit that I have anger issues?
Yeah.
Or why would I want to admit to someone that I'm sad, or I have different thoughts, of negative thoughts that I shouldn't be having, or maybe everyone has those thoughts, so I'm not any different than anyone else. So I think what's really cool nowadays with technology and things of like with things online is you can find help a lot faster now than you ever could in the past.
Yeah.
So for me, that's kind of where my journey started. Was, at one point before I kind of had that snap moment that we can talk more about here in a sec, but it was just Googling like, how am I supposed to feel? or I'm a guy. Where do I get help? So I'm grateful that there is that outlet with like Google and things to like go out and search and find things. But I guess for me, it just was never crossed my mind that I should get help. The next day you're fine. So why would I need to go help? If yesterday was a bad day and today's a good day, am I sick, or am I not sick, or do I really need help if today's a good day and yesterday was a bad day? Maybe yesterday was just a bad day. Yeah,
see, self-diagnosis is a tricky thing. How do we know if what we're experiencing is just a bad day or bad hair day, right?
Yeah.
Or, man, there was a lot of stresses at work today. Probably won't be as bad tomorrow.
Exactly.
And so we kind of have this little up and down experience, but we don't know we don't have the expertise to even self-diagnose. So am I just being weak? Or is there a real problem here that I need to be concerned about?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's no way to know.
Yeah. And I think that's what's... So I don't know if we'll talk about this incident. So at one point, there was a few years back, I really just had like I'll call it like a volcano moment where the lava just spewed. An explosion of emotion, negative emotion. My wife and kids were involved. And at that point, my wife thankfully said, you need to go get help.
Wow.
You need to get help. And that was very humbling for me, because it was like, oh, wow, I just exploded.
Yeah.
I just kind of just went all out just now, and I see that it hurt my wife and my kids in such a negative way. And it was like, well, why not? Why not go talk to someone? And why not get help? What if I don't need help? Great, then we know I don't need help. Or what if I need help and I'm glad I went and got help? So I think just going and asking and just talking to someone was the first big step for me that I'm glad I did.
One of the things I think is really awesome about what you just shared, and I hope this isn't too personal of a question, but that's pretty amazing that your wife had the ability to see it for what it was and not to see you as ruined. Like this is an it's a deal breaker kind of circumstance.
Yeah.
It was just looking at you and saying, you should get some help with what you're dealing with here. This is a serious situation.
Yeah. Yeah. She's a very strong woman. Super grateful for her. 'Cause I mean, it could have been one of those where she could have said, see ya, I'm out of here. I'm taking the kids and I'm gone. But she knew that's not who I am as a person. Right. So the fact that I was able to go talk to a professional and get some mental and clinical help, along with, I'm a proponent of medication. I mean, that's something that I currently still take.
Yep.
And I'm grateful that I do, because I feel like that is one of my things that help regulate.
Yep. Same with me.
My stress and my outbursts of anger, I guess.
It's so true. I've had certain responsibilities in my other job that have increased my increased stress levels. And it's interesting because in the two times that I've had those more high stress responsibilities in my life, anxiety and depression just absolutely became, I had to manage it, and therapy and medication were the keys.
Yeah.
There's a lot of responsibility on a husband and a father.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it very much.
I think especially from the male perspective,
Yep.
right? It's just not as commonplace. Like, I know growing up, I mean, I think a lot of times in media or advertising, you see that the woman might be the weak one, or the woman might have the emotional situations or issues, and rarely do you see that the men are vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I think it's good that we're talking more and more about it, because
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of men out there that need help or are looking for help in some shape or form and just don't know where to go.
In my family, we often joke about how, middle-class, middle-aged white males are a very privileged class, speaking globally, very, very privileged, right? And there's no argument on that. But at the same time, if you are in that demographic and you have a mental illness of some kind, you have some kind of a struggle, there's a little bit of added pressure to be like, what could you possibly be upset about? What could you possibly be sad or depressed about? You have every privilege given to you. And to approach it that way is literally to suggest that mental illness is not a thing. It's saying that, this is circumstantial, that the challenges of life, not chemical or something to do with your brain. And so many of that demographic, in fact, it is the highest suicide rate of all, is middle-aged men. So it's pretty interesting that it kind of gets overlooked that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up about the whole chemical and circumstantial, because I will say I've been very fortunate, very blessed in my life, to have food on the table and clothes on my back, and a beautiful wife and kids and a healthy body. Even to this day, I can even say yesterday I was kind of in a slump funk, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's like, "Well, when are you going to be happy again?" I was like, I don't really know. I guess we'll see what happens when my brain tells me I'm happy again. And it wasn't because because of a money issue or of not knowing, not having food, water, or shelter. It was, hey, I'm just kind of in this weird mindset right now, and eventually, hopefully, we'll get out of it.
Yeah. So you mentioned after this snapping moment, before we get to more details about what has helped you since then, can you tell us about what you experienced when you realized, oh man, this is a serious issue? Can you tell us a little bit about more of your feelings there in that moment?
Yeah, I think it almost was like an outer body experience of like, this is not who I really am, and what did I just say and do that can cause so much harm to my family? And I think that's when I was kind of realized, like, yeah, maybe my wife's right. Maybe I ought to go talk to somebody, because this is very out of characteristic of me. This is not who I am on the daily. And so that was a wake up call for me that I could go that low, and kind of have that bad of a moment, where I realized okay, I'll be vulnerable enough to go talk to somebody.
Yeah. So when you went and talked to people, when you talked to somebody, how did they reassure you? How did talking to someone help you?
I think anytime someone can just be heard, or if you can vocalize your thought process, I think that's very healing. That can be very helpful. So whether you're working with someone that's a licensed professional or just to a friend or family member, to actually vocalize what you're seeing, feeling, hearing, or what you feel like is your reality, just speaking words, I think can be healing in itself. And so that for me was helpful, just to talk through emotion, talk through why am I acting this way? Why am I saying the things I'm saying? Is that really the cause of why you're acting this way, or are those not the deeper issue?
Did you feel like you carried some shame or a lot of blame from that volcanic experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think I carry it often. I definitely watch what I say and do on the daily with my family. I've never gone that low since then. I think that was a pretty traumatizing experience for me and my wife, for our family, that I would never want to get back to that situation. So I mean, it's definitely been a learning experience.
Well, I just really admire your courage to share that with people, because sometimes it's like, hey, this is personal. This is in my family, and no one needs to know this, especially since I've handled this and it's reconciled, it's redeemed. We've found a way to make sense of it. But the challenge is so many people look at other families in our community, and we make judgments, we make assessments on, well, they have no problems. Everything seems to be going so well in that family, because we don't really know what's going on. Social media makes that so much more difficult, right? Because no one's broadcasting their dirty home or their, their arguments with their spouse. They're not doing that. They're taking pictures of vacation and delicious food, and
right.
And so that's so courageous and so helpful for you to share that, and that there's been help. Can you talk us through your medication journey? Did you get, was your prescription spot on the first time, or did you have to change dosage or anything like that?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting thought, or a good question. No. So there was, so when I met with my doctor, there was he prescribed a very low dose, obviously just to kind of see. After about, I want to say almost maybe 30 days, I went back and just said, I think I could use more. I don't know if that's the exact words I used, but I felt like maybe the edge wasn't being taken off as much as what I was hoping or thinking. And so we adjusted from there. And for me, we found the dosage that made sense for me, and I haven't changed it since, but I feel like it's been helpful for sure.
Did you feel like did you have any concerns that too much dose would remove personality or would affect, you losing your zest for life?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've had family members I've had extended family members who have gone through much more traumatic experiences with mental health than I have, and we've seen them be on wrong medication. That was, so that came through my mind immediately. It was, hey, I've seen someone who maybe was even on the wrong medication or something. That was a pretty extreme situation. So talking with a doctor and sharing with him my concern about that, he validated that, but because my dose was so, we started crawling before we started sprinting, I guess. So I felt very safe. I felt very comfortable with the decision of being on medication, knowing that we were starting from a very small dose and working our way up to where we thought the help was needed.
That's so wise. And 30 days makes a lot of sense, right? Because we were told that it usually takes 4 to 6 weeks to see the impact that a dose can have and a prescription. And so when we were walking through our daughter through it, it was a long journey. In fact, I think she tried 2 different prescriptions and it was like her fifth prescription of dose that finally worked. And I ran into that psychiatrist the other day and was telling her about Pause Wellness, and she said, "Will you please put a plug in for prescription?" She said that so often it can get a really bad rap because sometimes people will misuse it. They'll say,
Sure.
"You just give me the pill. I don't want to do the therapy." But the therapy is really, really crucial. And so sometimes we just have to strike that balance between wise therapy and prescription if necessary.
Yeah. I'm right on board with it. I can test that wholeheartedly, that I think having both those things together, for me at least, was a good way to combat what I was going through.
That's awesome. Wow. Thank you for sharing that with our listeners. So then you had a chance, you met with one of our founders, Esther Lee Molyneux.
Yeah.
And she met up with you, was telling you a little bit about Pause Wellness, and you guys were talking cater shop, those kinds of things. You want to share with our listeners a little bit about that meeting?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, Esther Lee is a saint. Love her to death.
Amazing person.
Anything that she does, I'm on board with.
Yep.
If she was selling ice in Alaska, I'd say, sign me up. Let's go do it together, because if Esther Lee's doing it, I'll do it.
Yep.
Yeah, so Esther Lee and I have had a relationship. She reached out to me and said, "Hey, we're doing this mental wellness stuff," and knowing my more recent history of things I had kind of gone through and things I had experienced recently, I said, "Well, I'm on board, Esther Lee. Whatever you're involved with, I want to be involved with as well." Then she also mentioned how there's an association with Latter-day Saint missionaries and mental health, and in our menswear, what we do, and we outfit Latter-day Saint missionaries with suits and shirts and ties, and they go out in the world and teach. I mean, that's a big part of our business. And I thought, wow, if there's anything that's involved with Latter-day Saint missionaries and mental health and wellness, I want to be involved, and I'll be an advocate forever with that. So I'm so happy I did. This Pause Wellness concept, everything that's been going on, the things I've been able to learn from what's been going on here, I'm on board. However I can help.
Oh, well, we appreciate that support so much. Running a nonprofit is not easy, right? And we're so dependent on donors and companies and collaboration to help us provide the services that we provide. So we just appreciate good business owners who have that vision, and for you being that person, we just appreciate that so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've found such a powerful pattern or framework, I would say, where oftentimes we think that healing through medicine is the only option. But so many studies have shown that healing with spirituality combined, it doesn't mean you have to convert someone to a specific religion, but if we honor their faith tradition and pair it with the science, that there is the data is showing that you have a really powerful combination there. How, if you don't mind me asking, how has your faith background paired with your therapy and medication been helpful for you?
Actually, that's really true and very powerful, because I think there is a lot of medication and therapy out in the world. There's a lot of good out there, but I will 100% agree with you on that. When there's a spiritual aspect brought in, whatever denomination, whatever your belief system is, I think anytime you can call from a higher power or belief, for me, that was part of the healing process. It was very much necessary to have a spiritual aspect, to know that I'm not alone in this, and to be able to use prayer, which is an important aspect of my belief system, to have prayer, and to and scripture study and meditation. Those are all important aspects, and sometimes those things get overlooked. And I think that is a very powerful part of healing.
Yeah. Can I ask about, you mentioned prayer and meditation. Do you use those separately? Do you use them, are you just using them as a synonym for each other, or do you approach them differently?
Well, that's a good point. That's a good question. I would say those are two separate events or two separate things, but they can be used at the same time. Mm-hmm. My belief in Jesus Christ and God as my heavenly Father, I think praying to a God who I would call my Father in heaven, and speaking and believing that he hears prayer, and using meditation as a way of maybe receiving inspiration or spiritual promptings of maybe how I should live my life or things I should say and do. I think that's really important. So there's not only that prayer aspect where I'm communicating with God, but there's also the meditation part, which is listening back and receiving promptings as well.
You know, we've seen a lot lately about mindfulness. It's gained a lot of traction in the mental health field and in the meditation and yoga and those kinds of things. Mindfulness is a powerful thing because we can get looping thoughts, and those thoughts can really send us down a dark tunnel. And mindfulness brings us back, stillness.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to recognize that prayer is not just speaking to a deity. Prayer can also be sitting and being at peace, kind of silencing out the world. As a business owner, I'm sure you get pretty busy.
Yeah.
Your phone probably dings off the hook.
That's right. Yeah. It's a good point. I mean, I think in a world that we live in, we have the distraction right in our hand all the time. The cell phone is such a powerful tool for good and for bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that mindfulness is something I've had to practice and learn, is being in the moment,
mm-hmm.
putting the phone on silent, locking the phone away, being present with my children at the time of, or present with my spouse, or being present with my own thoughts and not having the distractions is so important. I think also really being intentional with decisions.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we're just on autopilot so many times with the decisions we make in life, but being more intentional about the decisions we make and why are we making those decisions helps me kind of come back to reality, or helps me make better decisions, I guess, by being more intentional and why am I doing the things I'm doing.
It's almost like the conveniences and technology of our day have made us master multitaskers.
Oh, absolutely.
And that can take away being intentional, because we're just like in checking box mode and we're just going, we're like zombies in our work. I just read a study recently that was showing that there's obviously a decrease of religiosity happening globally. More people are not going to church and not identifying with a faith tradition, and many have attributed that to just simply a loss of faith. But this study was showing that we're losing a sense of community. We're losing, because we've created so much autonomy and independence through the conveniences and technology and multitasking, that people don't want to talk to people. That's why you have self-checkout at McDonald's and the grocery store, right?
Absolutely.
Because people just don't want to talk to people. And so that could be contributing to the lack of community, because we don't want to go to church. We don't want to talk to people. We just want to be able to be on our phone and accomplish all the things we need to accomplish, and then crash or go on vacation or something
Absolutely.
like that, right? So how have you found that church or a sense of community has helped you in your own faith journey?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to admit it. I mean, there's a lot of times where I don't want to be
Me
around
too.
other people,
Yeah.
and that's okay. I think that's a common thing. Like,
Yep.
you just want to be left alone.
Stillness. Yep.
Yeah. I think it's important. For example, this last week, I attended my church, and we were talking, and I mentioned, I think it's important that people gather together. As humans, we want a sense of community. That's a natural thing to want to be around others. But yeah, we can withdraw ourselves so much from people, from activities. There's strength in being with others and in worship, or just in community. And sometimes you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah. Church, it's really unique. In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, our congregations are based upon a geographical area, for those who don't know. And oftentimes people will choose church based upon where their friends are going, right? And we don't have that luxury in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, but my son was struggling with something recently, just like feeling like he doesn't connect well with his peer group. And so we talked about this concept that church isn't always about going with with people who see things exactly like you. Sometimes we go to church because it's about learning how to be with people who aren't like us. That diversity, there can be oneness in diversity. And although we may be united on certain beliefs, we are not the same, politically or by personality or by, hobby. We are going to church because we're stretching ourselves. Have you found that to be true in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. I think within that framework of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, I've come to know that my relationship with God, as my Father, is number one. That's the most important thing of why I go to church, is that relationship. The relationship of individuals around me is also important, because we have to realize that they're all children of God. I believe that. I believe that all humans are all children of a God, of our Heavenly Father. And so we all have to have charity and love towards everyone, because we're all so different. And I feel like for the most part, everyone's trying to just do their best.
Yeah.
Everyone's just trying to do their best on this journey of life, and no one has it figured out yet. And that's where I think there's that power of being together, is because we're all just trying to help each other out.
Yeah. And when we see each other that way, it's so much easier, right? Rather than we're not going to church to virtue signal. We're not going to church to demonstrate how we are more faithful or more righteous than others. We're all there because we're all struggling. We all need help. We all need comfort. We all need forgiveness in our lives, right?
Yeah, we're all a hospital of sinners, I guess.
That's right. And if we realize we're all on that same journey together, we can sure extend each other a lot more grace, which would help a father who has all these pressures to know, hey, I'm not alone. And hey, this other guy in my group, he's struggling with the same things I am. I heard he blew up at his family too. And what a great comfort that can be. It's not condoning blowing up. It's saying, hey, this is difficult. Let's work together. Let's help each other out.
I agree with that.
In community.
Yeah.
Well, if you were to consider our listeners and think about why you felt like it would be a good thing to come on the podcast, what is something that you hope from your experience that listeners understand? Because in your own journey, it maybe has been a private experience for you, but maybe some things that have been said are not helpful, and some things that have been said to you have been helpful in your own experience. What would you want our listeners to really understand? Is that too long of a question?
No, that
was a really long question.
I'll share what I think.
Yeah,
we're trying to get out of this. I think it's important for people to understand that they don't have to be alone in their journey, in their mental health journey of life. They don't have to be, and that there's people, there are individuals out there, family, friends, professionals that can and will help in whatever way if you want to be helped. I think that's important to realize. And it's okay it's okay not to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to be broken, or it's okay to not be perfect. I think it's helpful to know that you're valued and that you're loved.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that maybe this has been a genetic thing in your family, like you've got other relatives that have had mental health challenges. As you think about your kids, your children coming up, and if you started noticing some of those trends in them, what would you want them to know right away? Is it that same message, like, hey, it's okay. It's okay that you've got these challenges.
Yeah, I can tell you right now, our 5-year-old, it's something we've paid attention to already.
Mm-hmm.
Some of his behaviors, his mannerisms, his outbursts, a lot of those you can contribute to being a 5-year-old.
Right.
But we have already reached out to professionals, and in that patience is a virtue.
Sure is.
and everyone has different love languages, and for a 5-year-old, he doesn't necessarily need to be told what to do all the time, but he needs a dad or a mom to hug him and just listen to him, or just sit there while he has his outbursts, and nothing needs to be said. And so I think that's important to learn, is there's importance in just listening. We don't always have to give advice. We don't always have to fix someone. Just being present and being available is good enough sometimes.
You mentioned love languages. You know what's really interesting about that is, as a parent, sometimes we know what our kids' love language is, right? I mean, if you know your child, you know what helps them. But sometimes there's a tendency as a parent to think, if I reward them with their love language, I'm going to spoil them, and they don't deserve it because they have not cleaned their room or they haven't done this, right? And we don't realize how much that removal of their love language can have, the impact that can have on our children. And then the other mistake I see that I make all the time with the love language is, I know what my love language is, but sometimes I think that's the way, because I know this love language works for me. That's how I try to speak that language to other people.
Right.
But really the key to love languages is to know their love language and speak their language to them.
That's right.
Because that's where the power will be. That's when they'll feel loved.
Absolutely.
Have you seen that with your kids?
Yeah, it's the platinum rule, right?
Yeah.
Treat others how they want to be treated.
That's right.
And understanding what their needs are. And their needs aren't always my needs. So I have to be selfless.
Yeah.
And sometimes knowing what their needs are at that time.
I love that. I use that same phrase, right? The golden rule: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But platinum is do unto others as they would have you do unto them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's great. Fantastic. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking some time with us today and sharing vulnerable things and for your support of what we're doing at Pause Wellness, and just appreciate good people like you who are willing to do what you've done today.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad. This was a great experience. I'm glad that we were able to connect.
Oh, appreciate it. Well, maybe we'll have you on again sometime. It'd be a lot of fun.
Let's do it.
Thanks so much, Chris. Appreciate it.